Hi, I'm Lisa Curcio, and I would love to welcome you here to Lisa's Stamp Studio. Today is Monday. It is August 21st. The year is 2023, and this is a special YouTube premiere, which means I'm here with you live right now in the chat. I would love to answer your questions for you. Tonight, I'm going to teach you a pop-up accordion fun fold card for a birthday, but I have several other cards to share with you. This card is better known as a triple floating diamond card. A lot of words, isn't it? But it expands. In addition to that, it has great panels that you can adorn with designer series paper, embossed panels, or stamped images. And I'm really excited to share it with you. Now, make sure that you grab that free project sheet that's down in the video description below. That's going to be linked for you there when tonight's premiere is all over. It's going to contain the pictures, the cutting dimensions, and the supplies for all the projects I'm going to share with you tonight. In addition to that, there's going to be a template in there for you. And last but not least, I want to introduce you to Gina Hawley. You'll see her name here in blue off to the side, and we would love to interact with you. We're here to provide links and answer questions for you. So do me a favor, in order to chat or to comment if you're watching the replay, you'll need to log into your YouTube account, which requires your Gmail address. So go ahead and do that now. All right, we're ready. Let's get started. The base of this card is comprised of two pieces of 4 inches by 8 inch cardstock. Now I'm using garden green tonight. Remember, all the cutting dimensions are inside that project sheet for you. I'm grabbing my paper trimmer, and you'll find all the products I'm using tonight in my online store at lisastampstudio.com. Now this trimmer has a clear cutting guide, which is going to be really important tonight. It includes both the scoring and the cutting blades. They navigate up and down out of the way, which means you can leave them here on the guide at all times. We are going to do some simple scoring. The first one is going to be at 2 inches, and then we're going to line that here at the top where it's nice and straight. And then 4 inches, and then 6 inches. I'm going to move all the way over here. This does have an extendable arm, goes all the way up just past 17 inches. So if you're a scrapbooker, that'll come in handy, or if you use 12 by 12. We're going to use the exact same measurements now on this other piece. So 2, 4, and then 6. Now for this next step, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the pieces together. I found that doing them together actually worked a little bit better than separately. Now I realize the paper is dark and it's going to be difficult for you to see the crease lines and the ticks I'm going to make. So I brought in my favorite silver pencil that you all rave about. You're going to be able to find this linked for you on my website under Shop Craft Room Favorites. This is not in my online store, obviously not a Stampin' Up! Product, but so many of you love it that I made sure that there was a link there for you. Making sure that these are nice and even, we are going to come here to the center, which is going to be 2 inches, because remember I said this is 4 by 8. So just making sure they're together. I'm going to line that up at the 2 inch mark, using that ledge at the top to my advantage. I'm going to close the track door. And this is my other favorite product that you guys all love. This is my favorite craft pencil, again, linked for you on my website under Shop Craft Room Favorites. The lead is very, very soft, and the eraser is fantastic, but I can get right inside the track there with it. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this out of the way for a second, and I'm going to bring in that silver pencil because I know this is going to be easier for you to see. So I'm going to make a silver mark there, and the other one is going to be here at the score line, here and here. Okay, that should make it a little bit easier for you to see. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect the dots, but we're going to cut it. Again, I want you to make sure that those are nice and even. And this is where that clear cutting track comes into play. So I'm navigating my paper to make sure that the blade's going to fall down that black strip where it typically travels. So I'm looking here. And again, you just kind of twist and turn till it's right. And then here's my cutting blade, and I'm going to slice. A nice sharp cutting blade is going to do it for you every time. Now we're going to navigate it again, making sure those papers are together, and we're going to do the other side. So I'm looking to align the tip here and that edge of the crease here the very best that I can. You want these as even as possible. Once I'm happy with it, we're going to give that a slice. We need to do the other side. So we're going to turn this around and do the exact same thing. I'm going to line this up at 2 inches, making sure it's against that ledge at the top. I'm going to move all the blades out of the way, coming in with my favorite craft pencil. I'm going to make a line there. And again, I'll do the silver pencil for you so that you can follow along with me from home. One of the reasons I love doing these videos for you is that you can stop and start at your own pace and actually craft right along with me. I'm going to go ahead and open up that guide again, making sure those papers are nice and together, and we're going to align those dots. Remember that if your blade is not sharp, it won't cut well. So treat yourself to a new blade on your Stampin' Trimmer, and you will be so happy. So that's one. Now we're going to reposition those and make sure they're together. And now we're going to do the other side as well. If this is your first time visiting my YouTube channel, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. You head over to my website at lisastampstudio.com and click on rewards. I offer generous and exclusive ordering rewards there. Now, typically I would erase these, and they do erase with my little craft pencil, but I'm not going to bother with that tonight simply because I think it's going to be easier for you to follow along. Now we have two pieces are what's going to extend or expand this card. The next step is to take these two inside points and we're going to fold them up on that crease line. Now this is where your bone folder is your best friend. You're going to go over those crease lines the very best that you can, and we're going to do the same thing on this one and crease. These are going to be the component for the floating portion of this expanding card. There's going to be a piece of cardstock here that's going to attach them. Now I want to talk to you about this before we go any further. This one on the left is 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. This one on the right is 2 7/8 by 2 7/8, so a 1/8 inch difference. I'm going to show you what I did, and then you have the liberty of tweaking it at home based on how well you did with cutting. None of us cuts and scores absolutely perfectly. So I found when I used the 2 3/4 over this, and I'll show you how to connect them easily, that sometimes if I didn't line it up just right, do you see how there's like a double layer of cardstock here? I didn't like the way that looked. So I thought, let's cut it a smidgen bigger, 2 7/8 by 2 7/8. Now, if it's not perfectly aligned, you're going to run the risk of those little tips maybe getting smushed a smidgen with the crease, and that'll make more sense in a minute. Now, how do you get this on there while keeping these panels together? Well, the easiest way is to line them up, and we're going to crease them one more time. I want them flat, but let's turn them over. And from the back side, we are temporarily going to connect them. And for that, we're going to use this. This is the Post-it labeling and cover-up tape. This is not a Stampin' Up! Product, obviously, but I have it linked for you again on my website under Shop Craft Room Favorites. I use this for tons of things here in my studio. So again, I'm aligning the creases together, and I'm looking here at the top and the bottom to make sure that they're as even as I possibly can, and then we're going to tack those together. That's temporary tack tape. Now I don't have to fight this, right? We are going to use liquid glue for this. Now I want to bring in my silicone craft sheet here, because adhesive liquid glue and hot glue will not stick to this, which is going to make my life super easy. I'm going to make sure that the glue is on here, not here. And the liquid glue that I'm using is the multi-purpose liquid glue, again, sold in my online store. I store it in this little handy container. I've got that linked for you on my Craft Room Favorites as well. It keeps the glue primarily at the top of the bottle, which makes my life easy. I'm getting it started because I don't like surprises. I tend to be very heavy-handed with glue, so I'm not a big glue fan. I'm going to scoot this all the way over so that you can see a little bit better. Let's move that. And I'm going to literally drag the tip on the paper because I want this to be thin enough that it's not going to ooze outside the edges, because that's part of my problem. I'm too heavy-handed. But I want to make sure there's enough glue there that it's going to stick. This is very strong glue. I'm going to come straight down on that diagonal, and I'm looking to align the tips. So I can see here and here, and that glue gives you a little bit of shimmy room. So I'm looking here, and I'm looking here, and it looks like it's about aligned perfectly. And again, you can slightly pull it over before it dries. Like I said, dries very, very quickly, but it's also very, very strong. All right, now that that is tacked down, what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over now that we know that it's dry. Like I said, it dries quickly. I'm going to grab my Take Your Pick tool, and that's going to help me release that tape. Don't throw this away. You can reuse it numerous times. I'm going to put that right here on my cartridge, or you can put it on the handle of your die cutting machine. So we've got our first panel. The next thing we're going to want to do is score on the rest of these. This first one on the points needs to be what we call a valley fold, which means it's going to come in. Do you see how these points are meeting up? And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. And then we're going to crease. And you can already tell I'm not perfect. Do you see how there's a slight difference here? Okay, that's not going to be visible when we're done, but we are going to lay a layer on there. And these are two more of the exact same size that we used here. Now I used 2 7/8 by 2 7/8. So you're going to want to check and see if you like the 2 3/4 size better. And then of course you're going to adjust the measurements of those layers accordingly. Now this next one here, we're going to crease to the inside. Now again, we want to make sure that we're not going to squish that tip. So I'm going to open it up and I'm going to go over it with my bone folder. Check here and here to make sure that they are even. We're going to do the same thing this way. Do you see how my layer is covered well though? There's no of the base showing. And then we're going to fold that in and then we're going to crease. Now that we have the crease lines, that's going to really help us when we go to put the panels on before we add these. So let's push those up and off to the side and let's bring in the designer series paper. I am using a piece as fresh as a daisy. I love, love, love this paper. Double-sided, just like Stampin' Up's designer series papers are, which gives you lots of options even outside of the theme. So I'm going to come in with my silicone craft sheet now, and I'm switching over to my adhesive. This is my Stampin' Seal Plus. It is incredibly strong, so it's not forgiving if you make a mistake. So I like to keep my fingers underneath, and I'm layering it on a piece of basic white cardstock. Again, all those dimensions are in your project sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and add adhesive to the back side here, and we are going to add this to one of these panels here. Now this one, obviously, I can see really simply, but I don't do things straight, so I'm going to turn this horizontally to make it easier for my hand. Make sure your directions are all going the same way. So I'm going to go ahead and look for that margin between the score lines, the top and the bottom. When I'm happy with it, we're going to press that in place. Now I did the other panels before you joined me, so let's go ahead and let's add those now. But let's talk about how to get around that diamond shape. I'm going to go ahead and add adhesive here. Now obviously we don't want to crunch this, right? So we're going to fold this back and flip this down. That's going to allow this card to suspend and float. Again, making sure your direction is going the right way, because I have made that mistake. Looking between that score line, top and bottom, the best that you can, and then tack that down. Now we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. So again, I've flipped it. And here's the best part. If you've got designer series paper that has a really pretty floral pattern like this one, you can decide where you want the prettiest pattern to be viewed, because these outside panels are going to be more visible than the center because of the way the diamond expands. Now we're going to go ahead and add more adhesive to this last panel. And that one is going to go here. Again, I'm checking my direction and leaving that spacing. We want that nice little border all the way around. Layers can add so much to your card. Now we're going to go ahead and add the diamonds to this, but I would rather build on these first before I add them. And it's just a matter of preference. So let's go ahead and work on that now. I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap basic white cardstock here. And I'm using the bundle that coordinates with that designer series paper. It's called Cheerful Daisies. So it's the stamps and the coordinating dies. Now you might be looking at this going, wow. Okay, so let me explain to you. I had such a struggle to get all the die cut pieces on my magnetic cards, which by the way are not a Stampin' Up! Product, but I have them linked for you once again in my craft room favorites. I try to share as much as I possibly can with you that has helped me, because I know it also helps you. But what I did is once I finally got them all on here to fit really, really good, and you'll see I took some off to use them, I took a silver Sharpie marker and I literally traced around the outside of the die. That's going to make putting them away super easy, and I don't have to play that puzzle thing all over again. One large die here, but guess what? These other pieces will layer on top of these images, which means you have multiple ways to use this die set. The other reason I love outlining the dies, if I go to put these away and I have something open, I know that I need to go on a hunt and find that missing die. These Stampin' Storage magnet cards have been amazing. Look how thick they are, and the dies will not fall off. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you. I've already pulled out the pieces to the stamp set that I'm going to use. I'm going to bring in some black memento ink and some scratch paper. Obviously this is black, and I thought it was going to be a bit harsh for my designer series paper. So let me show you a little trick that I often use. Let's go ahead and remove this, and I'm going to bring in that large daisy image. It's photopolymer, which means the stamp is going to turn the color of the ink, which makes it stamping a breeze, especially if you're brand new. You can see that the stamp is very large, so you're going to need to make sure that you maneuver on the ink pad so you don't miss a spot. Better yet, if you're a new stamper, turn it face up and ink this way. You're going to find that's a whole lot easier. Now once you have it inked, I like to stamp off a layer of ink on my scratch paper and then lightly stamp a layer here. So it's going to be a very light gray muted tone. The best part is that most people don't realize that their ink pads will create several shades of color. So if you like to do no line watercoloring, this is a great tip for you. And I like the Memento ink specifically when I'm going to be using alcohol-based markers, because that is a water-based ink pad, which means it will not bleed when I use the alcohol-based markers. When you're using a dye-based ink pad, like perhaps the basic gray, this is just a different flower, you have a tendency of being concerned if you oversaturate the papers that it's going to get too muddied. So that's why I like the Memento. And now I've got another daisy here. This is my last one. And again, I'm going to stamp off, and I'll stamp that image lightly here. So you can see just based on the line art of the stamps, you're going to get some different intensity, but it's not going to be as dark as the black. I'm going to switch now over to the garden green ink pad. And obviously, we're going to need some leaves, right? So inside the areas here that are negative, I can stamp my leaves because there are separate dyes for all these flowers. And I want to talk you through one of the things about them. Now, I did do a variation of leaves. So I'm going to stamp. I've got that pretty green, but I'm not going to re-ink, and I'm going to stamp it again, leaving a little space between there so that I can make sure I maximize my scrap cardstock. Now, I did multitudes of these, and you'll see in a moment I already have them done for you. The next step for me was to die cut them. Now, I've already pulled out the dies for this, and my first one is here. You're going to notice that the die is going to fit beautifully around the outside. But on this one particularly, the bud, you're going to notice that there's a blank area here at the top, and this is where I decided to maximize the space. Now, there's dies for all of these, and of course, if you want to maximize your cranks through your machine, they're going to slip and slide. So guess what? That's where that tape is going to come into play. Line those up exactly where you want them, and then when you're happy with them, tape them all down and then crank it through. Now, I did do that ahead of time. Let me show you. So I have my flower, and I have one of the daisies here. Now I have other pieces already finished with you, but I want to go over these first. Now I want to add some color to the center, but I decided to do these a little bit differently, and I'm going to move you in a little bit closer so that you can see better. This is where I'm going to bring that scrap paper back in because I want to protect my work surface here. You're going to notice that negative area here needs to be filled. Now there is a stamp image here that you could use in a colored ink and add that there if you'd like. Same with this one. But I wanted to add some intensity because this is basically white. And this is where I decided to use the Stampin' Blends markers. Now the Stampin' Blends markers come in a color combination. So this is the Daffodil Delight, the light and the dark. And this is the Lemon Lolly, and I'm using just the light for this. Now let me show you here what I did. I like to use the brush tip for this. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add some color right here in the center where it's white. Now on this one, I decided not to do that because there is this incredible die that coordinates with this image. So I thought, well, what would happen if I just die cut that image and I colored it? And that's exactly what I did. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that light Lemon Lolly again. I'm using small circular motions just to kind of preserve that tip. And if you don't want to use your fingernail to hold this down, you can certainly use your paper piercing tool attachment on your take your pick tool. I'm not particular about covering the entire thing, but after it's had a few seconds to dry, this is now the Light Daffodil Delight. And I'm going to come in here at the bottom and add a little bit of density. Now this one, and I'm going to use my fingernail so that the tool's not in the way, I'm going to add it up here and around the side. As it dries, you're going to see the colors are closely related, but I wanted more depth, and that's where the dark comes into play. So I'm going to add a little bit down here at the bottom and a little bit up the side. And here at the top, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Add a little bit of depth around those edges. Now, while that seems like it's just too much, this is where the secret comes in. You go back to the lightest color, which in my case is the light Lemon Lolly. And I'm going to blend and bleed those colors together. So the same thing here. This is the beauty of alcohol-based markers, is that you can build upon them and they blend so beautifully. So I'm concentrating here at the bottom and that side just to get that blending all in place. And as that alcohol base evaporates, this is going to become more of its true color. Now the other pieces I did ahead of time which are here. So let me bring all these inside of your camera view. And let's talk about putting these together. So I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet here. And I want to talk specifically about the larger daisy here at the bottom. Now you're going to see that I wanted to kind of make sure that this had a 3D look, which is why I colored them by hand versus stamping them. So I'm going to kind of hold this with my Take Your Pick tool right here over the image, and I'm going to decide which is the best way for me to mount or adhere that little bud center. And I kind of like it like that. And I wanted some elevation, so I'm going to go ahead and use a dimensional. So I'm going to flip that upside down. I'm going to add my dimensional here to the back side and remove that paper backing. I'm going to do my best now to kind of mimic what I had originally, and then we're going to tack that in place because I just love the elevation to this just to make it look a little bit more real. Now, while this is pretty, we obviously need greenery, so let's start building on those diamonds. Now, the first diamond is here in the center that we had to use to put the card together. But I wanted some layers to play up the colors, and this is where Stampin' Up's color combination is a real winner. This designer series paper is from a different package, and it's called Delightfully Eclectic. And one side is completely different than this one. But to keep with the same background as this one, I wanted to make sure that I went ahead and I added that same white layer. So let's go ahead and just push these out of the way, and we're going to add some adhesive to the back side. And I am going to place this here. Now, again, remember this is going to be on the diagonal. So keep that in mind based on the designer series papers that you're using. Because if you use the same paper here as here, the design is going to be tipped. This now is going to go here. It really creates interesting pattern, doesn't it? Especially to the center of those daisies. Let's go ahead and add those here. And I am looking to leave that small margin all the way around. You see how my fingers are underneath the adhesive? I want to make sure it doesn't stick before I have it on that cardstock so that I know it's exactly where I want it. And then we'll attach that here. Now, if this is getting to be too much for you, let that block be your best friend and hold your project down in place. My best tip for you is to lay out your pieces first. That always will give you an idea on how everything is going to go together. Because if you're like me, you're often very, very excited, and then you end up putting it down and it's not exactly where you wanted it. So I'm going to go ahead and put these two pieces here. This is going to be in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and work a little adhesive here in the center. And I'm not working too close to the outside on purpose. I'm going to tip this for a little bit of character. Don't worry about it extending just past the diamond a little bit. This one I want to stand up. It's going to be in the foreground. So let's go ahead and let's use a dimensional here on the back side. And then we can tip this one a little bit here near the bottom to fill that paper. Now this is where those beautiful leaves come in that I die cut ahead of time. And I got a whole bunch of them here. And I did some dark and some light because I never know, right? We always want to experiment, and I can keep these for future projects inside a little bag right inside my stamp set. So let's start by laying these out here. I think I might want this little dark one up here near the top. Now, if you didn't seal it near the edge, you're going to be able to slip those in. And then I think I'm going to put another one here next to it, and that looks really good. So let's make this easy on ourselves, and let's use glue dots. They are between the layers of the paper. I'm going to go ahead and pick that up, and I'm going to press this near the top of the leaf because I want to be able to maneuver that bottom stem to where I want this. So I'm going to slide that back behind here, and I'm going to press that in place. Now we're going to do the exact same thing with this one near the top, using that Take Your Pick tool, kind of like my third hand, right? And then this one is going to go behind here. Now don't be afraid to change the depth of those leaves. That really creates a lot of interest. Let's work with another darker one now, and we'll place that one here. And I'd like to make sure that these are well spread out. We can use some of those negative areas on the background paper to our advantage. So there's one here. And let's take another dark one, and we'll add that one here. And then I think I'll put this leaf here, and we can even tuck it if we want. And then we've got one more. I love odd numbers. I find that they're very, very pleasing to the eye. So this one we're going to tuck way in, just so we have a little bit of that light green showing. So really pretty, isn't it? And so simple. Now, if you look very closely, you may notice that there's a little bit of shadowing here in the middle of these flowers. Do you see it? Okay, let's talk about that. I left one of these with a blank petal so that I could show you. I used the light smoky slate with the brush tip in a very light hand. and you're going to work from the top down, and you're literally going to give it like a little brush. Once that dries, and you need to wait a few seconds, and of course I'm speeding things up, you're going to come in with the color lifter. I cannot live without this tool. Small circular motions from the bottom up. It looks wet because it is. That's because the cardstock has absorbed some of that alcohol base. Now these remaining flowers we're going to add to the outside diamonds. But I also want to talk to you about a spot to put the greeting. Now I have several other samples to share with you, and they're different, and I think you're going to love the variations. Inside the same die set is this fabulous label die that is stitched. So I did 2 of those ahead of time. I'm going to keep one of them blank because I want that to be where I can sign my name. If you need more room, I've got more ideas for you. This one is where we're actually going to stamp the greeting for the card. This is all from the same stamp set. I'm inking it up in the Garden Grain ink, and this is the color coordination factor with Stampin' Up. You got to love that everything matches. I'm going to do my best not to get my head in your camera view, and we're going to press, and then we'll release that. Okay, we've got all our parts and pieces here now, which means we can get these remaining diamonds already. So I'm going to bring those in and bring them here on the diagonal, and I've already added the same designer series paper and the layers that we previously did for here. But let's go ahead and let's add our adhesive to the back side, and we're going to place these here. You again want that little border of that green cardstock showing all the way around. If you head over to my website at lisastampstudio.com and you scroll to the bottom, you'll see the word subscribe. If you click on that, that'll sign you up for my free weekly e-newsletter. It's no frills. Not only do I keep you abreast of all the goodies that are going on here at the Stamp Studio, but you're also going to get a free tutorial that I don't share elsewhere. That's sent out every Thursday. We're going to take these diamonds now, and they're going to get attached here. So this is going to come to the inside, and I want to show you that this diamond is going to go like this. So this is going to float from the side. We're going to use liquid glue again, and because you know how messy I am, I'm going to take all these little cute pieces off to the side because I definitely want to use that silicone craft sheet. I'm going to tuck that up underneath so that any extra glue that's not going to fall on my table will fall on here. We'll come back to that liquid glue. Again, no surprises. I'm getting it started. We're going to drag that tip right here on the paper to make that glue nice and thin, but we want to make sure we've got some coverage. We're going to put a spot here with our finger, and all I want you to do is take the tip from the layer to the tip of the base, and you're going to align them. I'm doing my best to make sure that these are not overlapping, and I'm looking here and here to make sure that they're within that perimeter. Now remember, this was 2 7/8 square versus the 2 3/4. And now we're going to scoot over, and we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. So again, dragging that tip because you want this nice and thin. If you're creating with me at home, I'm so excited that you're here. Remember, that pause button is going to be your best friend so that you can craft right along with me. And then same thing, we're going to line this up, looking to align those layers, and we're going to navigate here and here to get them as even as possible. Remember, I told you this one's a smidgen off compared to this one? Well, there's a lot of self-forgiveness in crafting, isn't it? None of us is perfect. We want our cards to obviously have gorgeous craftsmanship, but we have to be able to have fun along the way. We're going to go ahead and cap this because we're all done. Let's talk about that greeting. I wanted this on this panel. You'll see my other samples have a lot of variations. Let's flip that over, and we're going to add some adhesive here to the back side. Now I chose to place this here in the center, and we'll tack that in place. This is where we're going to use one of those flowers. I decided I wanted mine up a little bit, so I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to use a dimensional here on the back side, one near the bud. Now, I often like mini dimensionals for this because you can see I can fit those larger ones, but it's going to get a bit crowded. And this is going to help space things out a little bit more evenly. I'm going to be really careful on these outside panels to make sure my dimensionals are level because I want to be cognizant of the mailing as this goes through the mail meter at the post office. And then I'm going to tip this a little bit. I'm going to put that here near the bottom. And let's grab one of those leaves. And this time again, we're going to use another glue dot. And we're going to place that near the tip as we've previously done. You can add more of these if you'd like, but I'm just going to do one for tonight here, making sure I don't cover up that greeting. Let's scoot over here. Remember, I left this one blank on purpose because that's where I'm going to put my signature. I'm going to add that adhesive. We're going to scoot over. I'm looking towards the center, and I'm going to adhere that. Now, I don't want these panels exactly the same because this is going to have an incredible display feature when we're all finished. So I want you to think outside the box. While this one is on the bottom right, this one could easily be on the top, or it could be off to the side on the opposite side. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work this one a little bit different than what's inside your project sheet. And just to speed things up, because we've already gone over the dimensionals, I'm just going to add one for this card. And I'm going to work this one here in the upper corner. You can see that the yellow gets a little bit lost. So let's see what happens when we add some leaves up there. It's quite pretty, isn't it? But you're going to notice too that it's going to stick out quite a bit. Is that going to be a problem when this card is closed? Doesn't look like it. But here's another tip for you. Grab your scissors, cut off that end. That's going to give you a little bit more depth to work with, and that's exactly what I'm going to do for this card. So I'm going to go ahead and place that glue dot here near the top once again. We are going to slide that in. Now, if you want more, you certainly can go ahead and add them. Now, let's show you how this card is going to fold for mailing, and there's actually two different ways that you can do it. The easiest way is to put one panel over the other, and this is the beauty, is that you can interchange them. Now, while this might be a little plain for you, I want to talk to you about a couple things. You can add some ribbon to here, and then tie it off to the side. Wouldn't that be pretty? You can eliminate the flower, create a belly band that looks wide enough to go across the center and put your flower there. The only thing is, keep in mind when this is opened and expands and becomes an accordion, that little flower is going to be on a piece that's not going to be on display. Now let's talk about how this is displayed. It can work this way, which means the panels on the outside come to the inside, or better yet, they can go to the outside, which means your center panel comes up. But I love this because not only is the card beautiful, but it shows you who it's from immediately. So the choice is yours. So here is the first one. Now let me show you those other cards that I created for you. This next one is created using a whole myriad of products, but I want to share them with you. The Reach for the Stars dies. Oh, I'm falling in love with this because of these different size circles. So keep that in mind. We also have the Around the Bend stamp set, and I have the Sentiment Silhouettes dies and the Charming Sentiments stamp set. Now this stamp set I did design as part of my $1 Million achievement with Stampin' Up. And when the dies came out with it to coordinate, when Gina and I got it, we immediately saw that it needed a template, because how do you know which die goes with this without a hunt and peck? So we created a free digital download for you that you can find over on my website at lisastampstudio.com under Shop Digital Downloads. So this template is going to indicate the top of the die with the red dot, and it's also going to tell you which words it goes to. So you can quickly look at this and see exactly where they go. I have had so much fun with this because it's a fantastic greeting set that covers just about every occasion you can think of. So I use that in this next card as well. So this card is for fall because we've got those fall months coming up real quick, don't we? Now I want to call your attention to something. Do you see how this is not perfect? Does it bother me? Maybe a little bit, but not really, because I want to show you another way you can fold this card. Let's open it first. These are with the circle dies. I used the Around the Bend dies to create this into a sunflower and create those leaves. Different shaped pumpkins using the amazing double oval punch. Love that. That's in my online store. And then I added some sunflowers in the middle. This is a very simple card overall. A lot of beautiful punch art here. As we did before, you can go back to front, or you can go front to back, free stands, which I love. Well, where do you sign? Well, on this one, I added 2 panels to the back side. So this is the Around the Bend greetings, and I just did half at a time, and then I put another sunflower here. But you notice how I did some stamping here? So I used one of the small little leaf images in the Around the Bend stamp set to create some background. And that's because if I was going to close this card and mail it, it had a little bit of pizzazz here in the front. Again, belly band, ribbon, all works. But let me show you the alternate way you can close this. So this can fold over the center on top of this one, and then this one collapses on top of this one. Now, when you put it in the envelope, this is what they see. And quite frankly, the sides really don't bother me at all now. The best part of all is when I handed it to Bob the Builder, my husband, he intuitively knew exactly how the card was going to open and be displayed. So this is the second card. Now wait till you see this third one and the idea I have for this. I'm using Hello Ladybug Timeless, and it has a coordinating punch called the Lady Builder Punch. So you've got those wings and the body here. And I did bring in some words from beautiful balloons. Mix and match with your stamps. That's why you bought them. And here we go. Very, very simple color palette. And again, you have an option on how you want to fold this. But the pop on this is on the inside with that beautiful red and white polka dot designer series paper. I added some flowers here. So again, to the front or to the back. Do keep in mind, I did these 2 7/8 by 2 7/8 inch square. And on the back side, I left more space for writing and signing. Now, as always, I love to know which one is your favorite. Do me a favor, pop down right now in the comments below and let me know. Your feedback is very, very important to me. Now, I would love to meet you, which means I'm going to tell you all about my annual in-person event here in the Tampa Bay area. It is coming up very quickly next month on September 23rd. We've only got a little bit of time left here for registration. It's going to end here on September 8th. Head over to my website, and under online events, you'll see Party with the Stamp Studio. It's a full day event where we're going to stamp, we're going to demonstrate, we're going to do prize patrol. It allows me and the entire Stamp Studio staff to meet you as well as you meet one another. All the details are there. We have hotel blocks for you and transportation information, and we hope that you'll make a long weekend of it and come and join us here in the Tampa Bay area. The other thing I want to make sure you know all about is this: Stamp Studio memberships. Stamp Studio memberships provide you additional ideas every single week that come right to your inbox. Now, I don't share these ideas anywhere else. They are exclusive for these memberships. So if you love fresh ideas to use wherever you want, Stamp Studio memberships is the way to go. I did not copyright any of the tutorials or the photos, so you can share them however you please. But if you like even more, you're going to want to know all about this. This is level 2, which includes a fun fold, a discount in my PDF tutorial library, and I do a giveaway every single month. Make sure you head over to my website, check out my vast PDF tutorial library there for you, and mark your calendar. I'm going to be back with you next Monday, which is August 28th already. Boy, where's the summer gone? I hope that you'll mark your calendar to be here with me, and I look forward to seeing you then. Have a great evening, everyone.